hopefully you've seen rectangles and squares before in elementary math, right? Properties of a rectangle and a square. A square, all sides are equal. All angles are 90, so they're all congruent. A rectangle, opposite sides are equal. All angles are 90. Right? Square, rectangle. So are squares and rectangles parallelograms? Yes. All squares and rectangles are parallelograms, but not all parallelograms are squares and rectangles. Just special parallelograms are, right? So when you look at your chart, these should be pretty easy. All angles are congruent. All sides on a square are congruent. Opposite sides are congruent in a rectangle. Angles are supplementary because they add up to 180 as you go around. With a square, diagonals are equal, and they bisect each other, and they meet at 90s. Okay? And they bisect their own angles. So if I were to take the two diagonals of a square, each part of that diagonal triangle that's created would be 45, 45. And then that angle in the middle where the diagonals meet would be a 90. Okay? Not true for a rectangle. Rectangles do bisect the angle, or don't bisect the angle necessarily, but the diagonals are equal. Okay, they don't bisect the angle they're coming from, because it could be a really, really long rectangle and not very short, and so that angle of the diagonal is definitely not going to split that angle in half. It's going to have a steeper slope, right? But they are both parallelograms. A rhombus may be something new that you haven't heard about, or maybe you have and you've forgotten. Videos hopefully you watched. So a rhombus, in a rhombus, all four sides are equal, like a square, but all four angles are not. Okay, opposite angles are equal in a rhombus, and the diagonals intersect each other at 90 degrees. Okay, so I think on here there's a chart toward the end. If I were to use this diagram as a square, I know that SQ, QR, RE, and ES are all equal. I know all four of those angles are 90. I know that the diagonals intersect, and they bisect each other, and they come together at a 90. And they split the corner angles equally in a square. Okay, so here is properties of all parallelograms. Now if we look at a rhombus, SQ, ER, SE, and QR are all equal. So all the sides are equal to each other. The two diagonals come together at a 90, or perpendicular to each other. So that's what this means. SR is perpendicular to QE. The opposite angles are equal. And it does bisect the corners in the rhombus. That's where SEQ, SEQ, that angle and that angle are equal. So it does bisect those corner angles. Okay, so if I were to draw a rhombus, these are all equal. So it almost looks like a square. What's the difference? That's not just turned. What else is missing? Angles aren't 90 necessarily. This angle isn't 90. Okay? So, but I know this angle and this angle are equal, this angle and this angle are equal, and if I draw the intersections, they all come together at a right angle. And they split the opposite angles equally. Okay? So on your sheet, for a square, or let's do rectangle next, Are opposite sides parallel? Yes. Are opposite sides congruent? Yes. Are opposite angles congruent? Yes, because they're all 90. Are all consecutive angles supplementary? Yes, because 90 plus 90 is 180. Are all angles congruent? Yes. Are all sides congruent on a rectangle? No. Do the diagonals bisect each other? Yes, on a rectangle they do. Are they perpendicular to each other, the diagonals? No. For a rectangle? No. Square they are. Do the diagonals bisect angles? No. And there is not exactly one set of parallel lines, so that's no. And the next one's yes, I guess, base angles, because all angles are congruent in a rectangle. Jake, no calculators on the first unit. Okay, rhombus. Are opposite sides parallel? A rhombus. Yes. Are opposite sides congruent? Yes, because all sides are congruent in a rhombus. Are opposite angles congruent? Yes. Are all consecutive angles supplementary? Yes. Are all angles congruent? No. Are all sides congruent? Yes. Do the diagonals bisect each other? Yes. Are they congruent? No. Are they perpendicular to each other? Yes. Rhombus, diagonals intersect perpendicular. And do they bisect the angles they come from? Yes. And then no, there's not exactly one set, and the base angles are not congruent. Okay, hopefully you guys can fill out the square row on your own. Okay, so when you deal with problems with rhombi, which is plural for rhombus, some of them may require that you identify the length of maybe this side or this side. You're going to end up using a lot of right triangles. So just remember Pythagorean theorem. Okay? The two short sides squared and added together equals the square of the hypotenuse, or the side opposite the 90. Okay, you'll need that to solve some of these rhombus problems. Okay? So really, rectangle, square should be review. Rhombus is maybe new. And that's what this section covers. So work on CK12 for just a minute, and I will get big idea.